Right friends, welcome back to 39th week, Capsule-1. This is with regard to ratification of a Paris Climate Treaty by India. We are going to throw some light on Paris Climate Treaty. At the same time, what are the challenges? These things we are going to discuss in this capsule. And I have given factual information here. Paris Treaty last year, Conference of Parties 21 was held in Paris from November 30 to December 12. And at that time, this Paris Treaty was concluded. You may ask, what is the need for Paris Treaty? Basically, to reduce greenhouse gases, to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases. And please look into this slide. These are fossil fuels. I have given 3 fossil fuels here: coal, crude oil, natural gas. If you burn these fossil fuels, then what will happen? Gases will be released into the atmosphere. So, to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases, burning of fossil fuels should be reduced. That is most important point. And the second one is, you may ask, what are greenhouse gases? Before going into that, let us have a glance at how the temperature rise takes place because of greenhouse gases. All of you are well aware. Please look into this slide. We get solar energy through radiation from sun. Solar energy we get through radiation from sun, and subsequently part of this radiation gets absorbed by the earth, and subsequently earth re-emits part of the radiation. And when this re-emitted radiation is going back, then this greenhouse gases will absorb that. These greenhouse gases will absorb that, and because of which the temperature on earth will increase. So, greenhouse gases are predominantly carbon dioxide. And more than these gases, I would like to tell you one point. Water vapor absorbs this radiation more than any other gas, but you do not have any control on water vapor, and at the same time, water vapor is not constant throughout 365 days. So, ignore water vapor. By ignoring water vapor, the greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide predominantly. So, I have given here the percentage greenhouse gas emissions by gas at global level. Carbon dioxide constitutes around 70%, followed by methane, then nitrous oxide. If you look at the carbon dioxide, basically due to the burning of fossil fuels. I have just now talked about various types of fossil fuels, and because of burning of fossil fuels, this carbon dioxide emissions will take place into the atmosphere. And at the same time, because of destruction of forest also, because of deforestation, what will happen? Carbon dioxide will increase in the atmosphere. So, burning of fossil fuels, deforestation, they are the main contributors for emissions of this carbon dioxide, and this is around 70%. Then methane is basically released due to agricultural activities. Then nitrous oxide is released because of agricultural activities such as the use of fertilizers. So, predominantly carbon dioxide around 70%, methane is 14%, nitrous oxide is just 8%. So, these are greenhouse gas emissions by gas at global level. So, we discussed about various fossil fuels and how the re-emitted radiation is absorbed by the atmosphere, and what is the composition of greenhouse gases. And I would like to tell you one point. Because of industrialization, carbon dioxide component in the atmosphere increased from 280 parts per million almost 250 years ago. That is the pre-industrialization era. If you go back 200 to 250 years, at that time the carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere was 280 parts per million. Now it is around 400 parts per million. increase of almost 50% because of industrialization, because of burning of fossil fuels, because of deforestation. So, because of all these things, during the past 200 years, the levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere increased from 280 parts per million to almost 400 parts per million. So, this Paris Treaty is all about reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, one benchmark is kept. The benchmark is the global temperature rise should be restricted to 2 degrees centigrade, preferably 1.5 degrees centigrade if you compare it with pre-industrial levels of around 1750 and 2100. That means the temperature rise in comparison to pre-industrial levels in the year 1750, when you compare now by 2100, it should not rise by more than 2 degrees centigrade, preferably 1.5 degrees centigrade. What I mean to convey is, in comparison to pre-industrial levels, the temperature rise should be restricted to 2 degrees centigrade, preferably 1.5 degrees centigrade by the year 2100. So, as to restrict the temperature rise, we have to have control on greenhouse gases. So, this Paris Treaty is all about controlling the greenhouse gases, right? So, each country was asked to submit its own nationally determined contributions. It is not like the Kyoto Protocol. Each country was asked to give how much you can contribute, and accordingly each country has given its own INDCs. India submitted its INDC on October 2, 2015. Last year on Gandhi Jayanti Day, India submitted its INDCs, and subsequently Paris Treaty was concluded on 30 November 2015. And the treaty got signed by around 191 countries on World Earth Day on April 22, 2016. And this is about ratification. This treaty is to be ratified by individual countries. Each country have got their own procedures. Some countries require parliamentary approval, just like European Union. European Union's parliament recently approved, or you can say ratified, Paris Treaty, and in India it is executive decision. It need not go to parliament. So 55 countries have to ratify by following their own procedures in their countries, and these 55 countries should constitute 55% of total emissions. And India is the 62nd country to ratify. And please don't forget, India contributes to 4.1% of total emissions. And please don't forget, China is the largest emitter, followed by United States of America. If you look at it from per capita emissions, that means per each person, the emissions are the highest in United States of America. But if you look at the total emissions, China leads the table, and India's contribution is just 4.1% of total emissions, and China and United States of America together constitute 1/3 of total emissions. And with India's ratification, total emissions ratified came to 52%. And European Union, please don't forget, European Union is the grouping of 28 countries, and it constitutes 12.1% of the emissions. And once European Union submits the papers of ratification, then this treaty will come into force after 30 days. And European Union is expected to submit ratification within 1 or 2 days, and subsequently within 30 days this Paris Treaty will become international treaty, and subsequently it is legally enforceable and binding. So, when the treaty comes into force, these INDCs will become nationally determined contributions, and each country has to devise their legal framework for implementation of these nationally determined contributions. Right friends, this is all about Paris Treaty, and please look into this picture. Our permanent representative to United Nations submitting the instruments of ratification to United Nations. Right friends, look at our nationally determined contributions. India aims to cut its carbon emissions per unit of GDP. They are not in absolute terms, please remember. Per unit of GDP by 33 to 35% by 2030 from 2005 levels. That is one commitment. The second commitment is India will achieve 40% of its cumulative installed capacity of power generation from non-fossil based energy sources. That's why government is giving more thrust to solar energy, wind energy, and at the same time, India will create a carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of CO2 equivalent through additional forest and tree cover by 2030. This is a carbon sink. You may ask what is meant by carbon sink. It is nothing but creating green cover. And in the INDCs, India stated that India need at least $2.5 trillion to meet the goals by 2030. So, these are the INDCs submitted by India, and once this comes into force, then these will become nationally determined contributions. INDCs will become NDCs. Right, what are the challenges for implementation of the treaty? I have listed out the challenges for the world. Not only that, challenges for India also I separately listed. So first let us look at challenges for implementation of the treaty across the world. First and the foremost point is advanced economies have to contribute $100 billion per year for Green Climate Fund, and this Green Climate Fund will facilitate taking care of developing and underdeveloped countries because they require a lot of finance. Now developed countries have burnt enough fuel and developing countries are in the process of development, and Green Climate Fund is created to assist developing countries, underdeveloped countries to switch over to renewable sources of energy. And here it is not clear whether the advanced economies contribute this much or not. There is no institutional framework as on date. Then second important point is, even if advanced economies contribute $100 billion every year from 2020, then it is not at all sufficient because underdeveloped countries require huge finance to switch over to renewable energy sources. Third important point, the most important aspect is transfer of technology. To switch over to renewable energy sources, some innovation is required, energy efficiency is required, and whether the developed countries will share the technology with the developing countries, because here people talk about patent rights, intellectual property rights, and developed countries should share the devised technology with the developing countries, and for that particular purpose there is no institutional framework. Institutional framework should be developed for transfer of technology. Then even if INDCs are complied, each and every country has given INDC, even if these INDCs are complied, then some climate scientists felt that it is not possible to limit the increase in global temperatures to 2 degrees centigrade level by 2100. Already the global temperatures have increased by more than 1 degree centigrade when you compare to pre-industrial levels. And please don't forget, 2015 was the hottest year on record, and there is every possibility that within the next 10 years, global temperatures rise may reach 1.5 degrees centigrade. Under these circumstances, INDCs submitted by the countries are not at all sufficient to limit the temperature to 2 degrees centigrade. That is one important point as per the opinion of some international climate scientists. And another important aspect is devastating weather-related events such as the floods, droughts, more intense storms, heat waves, wildfires due to climate change have almost doubled in recent times, and unpredictable events are taking place quite often. So this indicates that damage has already been done. Then urgent steps are needed to improve energy efficiency and switching over to renewable energy and changing the lifestyles in developed countries. Developed countries are known for their lavish lifestyles. They are consuming more energy in comparison to developing countries and underdeveloped countries. So they have to change their lifestyles. Then some countries are resorting to fossil fuel subsidies and they have to be removed. India has done the right job by imposing rupees 400 cess on burning of coal per each ton. So like that, each and every country have to take steps to discourage the use of fossil fuels. So these are the challenges for implementation of the treaty. And if you look at specifically India, India has kept a target of 1.75 lakh megawatt of power generation, or you can say 1,75,000 megawatt of power generation through non-fossil fuel sources by 2022, and achieving this target is the real challenge. Second important point is improving energy efficiency is the need of the hour. Energy efficiency measures have already been introduced. If you look at the usage of power for domestic purposes is concerned, but the biggest point here is how to ensure energy efficiency in industrial sector. That is most important point. And another important aspect is meeting the requirements of finance to switch over to non-fossil fuels is the challenging task. Then fourth one is India committed carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of CO2 equivalent. And it requires a massive afforestation. And India is struggling to keep the existing forests intact. Lot of deforestation is taking place day by day, and under these circumstances, whether it is possible to go for massive afforestation is the big question mark. And transfer of technology from Western countries with regard to switch over to renewable energy sources is another challenging task for India. And in spite of these challenges, India is on the right path. Because of the reasons, in recent times, India has taken massive efforts to switch over to LED bulbs. That is one important point. Second one is India is giving more emphasis on renewable sources of energy like solar energy, wind energy. So let us tell best wishes to the world for implementing this climate treaty. But the biggest question mark is, in spite of implementing all these things, can the global temperatures will be contained within 2 degrees centigrade or not by the year 2100? Right friends, let us conclude this here. Please do join for other capsules. Have a nice day. Thank you.